Good Thursday, Anona family and friends. Time for our devotion, and I want to talk today about setbacks. We all have them, and it seems like right now, with the COVID variants popping up and hospitals getting full, our emergency services getting overloaded, it seems like we've had a setback, and we were opening up there for a while, and it's so hard once we begin to think that the pandemic is finally coming to an end, and yet we have this setback, and sometimes it makes us feel like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to end? And we get discouraged. And then we see things happening in our world, the earthquake in Haiti, followed by the storms, and what's happening in Afghanistan. We begin to think, oh, the world is just one setback after another. For many of the people in different parts of the world and our country, fires, volcanoes, all of those activities, when you think you're making progress and then there's this setback, and it can be so heart-wrenching and discouraging, and sometimes we even begin to lose our faith. But I want to remind you that throughout the Bible, throughout biblical figures, there have been times where they have had tremendous setbacks. Almost all stories in the Bible contain something about something that was not going right. And sometimes when you think it's going right again, and then there's a setback and it's not going like you thought it would. Well, one of the stories I want to share today is from Genesis. It's the story of Joseph. And you can read the whole story of Joseph in Genesis chapters 37 through 50. It takes up, quite a bit of space there in the book of Genesis. And many of you will remember the story of Joseph, multi-technicolor dream coat, or the coat of many colors. I think you'll remember some of that. Well, Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers because he was one of the youngest. He was the 11th of 12. And he had these dreams that his brothers would bow down to him and worship him. And of course, he had no problem telling his brothers these dreams and making them even more angry at him. And even his father chastised him. But Joseph continued to tell his dreams. And so his brothers got angry and jealous of him and sold him into slavery. And he went to Egypt, where we know the story of Joseph then worked his way up, and at some point became like the second in command of Egypt. And his brothers eventually had to come to Egypt to buy grain because there was famine throughout the land. And of course, Joseph had foreseen this. He said there would be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. And so he prepared Egypt for that. At one point, Joseph finally reveals himself to his brothers, and he moves all of them to Egypt. But then after their father dies, the brothers are very concerned that Joseph is going to take retribution against them. In chapter 50, verse 17, the brothers are talking to Joseph. They say, "Please forgive your brother's sins and misdeeds, for they did terrible things to you. Now please forgive the sins of the servants of your father's God." And Joseph answers them in verse 18. He said, "But Joseph said to them, 'Don't be afraid. Am I God? You planned something bad for me, but God produced something good from it, in order to save the lives of many people, just as he is doing today.'" I think that's an important thing for us to remember, that even in our setbacks, even in those times when we feel like we're just going the wrong way, that from that which was bad, God can make something good happen. And often it's something good that we can do. Setbacks can become opportunities when we are patient, face trouble with courage, obey God, and stay confident in His calling in our life. And as we see from this story, Joseph was able to save many people's lives because what his brothers meant for evil, in a sense, to get rid of him, to put him away, it was because of their actions that Joseph ended up where he was. And he was able to save not only his own family, but many of the population of Egypt and Canaan at that time. So have heart that in your setback, maybe there's something that God will provide an opportunity for you to find a way to make something good happen. And I hope you will continue to have the faith that God is working in and through you to do good. Hope you have a good weekend. Hope to see you in church Sunday. See you next week.